Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia. Welcome back to another episode of our early game playbook guide, as we will be covering the last of Yellow Turban DLC characters in Gong, the Master of the Land. And he starts out in a very interesting spot on the map, out west. Kind of near the Shu region, a little bit to the north, we have Wudu's copper mine, I believe, in the beginning. And we're surrounded by some very tough opponents in Ma Teng and Dongzhuo. And we're also at war with Zhanglu over here, and most likely Liu Yan will go to war with us because we're Yellow Turban. So we're kind of isolated from our other two Yellow Turban partners, but that's also a good thing. We're isolated from most of the factions on the map, so give us a little bit of breathing room, assuming we can survive these initial onslaught, which is why we have a starting situation very hard. We'll be taking a rather passive approach with this guide, because I tried many different things with this start, and you can play extremely aggressive and wipe out both Ma Teng and Dongzhuo quite early on, but it's not very beginner friendly and requires a lot of microing in battle because his starting unit are actually quite interesting. So we're going to do quite the opposite. We're going to take a very passive approach and also highlight some of the strength of Yellow Turban generals and have a kind of foolproof way of dealing with Ma Teng early on and shifting your faction to something much stronger than you would do if you just rush out, because you met with armies led by Lu Bu and Dongzhuo and Ma Teng, and that might be a little bit too hard for beginners to deal with if you're not experienced in battling on legendary difficulty. So let's introduce the faction first off. We have Dominion of Gongdu, which will give us increased campaign movement range. This will be 10%, increased loot from battle, another 10%, and also minus 10% corruption. It's not listed here, but you can check it in game once we do go in. We're going to start out with one reform that's going to give us the Guardian of the Land. This is an excellent frontline spear unit with very heavy armor that we can, improve, because that's going to be our specialty when we look at Gongdu as a faction leader. We get a unique building in the guerrilla warfare building, not warfare, and we'll end up with some increases to post-battle loot, which is going to be a very common reoccurring theme for Gongdu's faction, and military supplies. We also get a unique stance on the battlefield called Liberate that we can use in foreign territories to reduce their food and their public water by 18 points. It's very similar to the raid stance by the bandit faction. It will cost you a bit of your movement as well as make you a bit tired in battle. You can basically spawn rebellions this way if you want to take a slow approach, or if you just want to use armies of generals, single generals, all in the Liberate stance just to mess up the enemy commandery really fast, because you get minus 18 public water per army doing this. So if you just use a single general army and you use, like, say 6 of them, you can have, up to or over 100 point of public water hit per turn. So you can get minus 108 per turn with 6 generals, and no matter how high their public water is at the beginning, it's going to drop to negative 100. You're going to spawn rebellion, and hopefully they can help you capture the city. And once the Yellow Turban rebels capture the city, you can just annex it because you have the ability to do so as one of the leading Yellow Turban factions. You start out with another character named Zhang Kai, and he is decent. We'll look at his skill tree once we get into game, but let's talk about our faction leader here. We have Gongdu, who starts out with Vigilant, increasing melee evasion for his own retinue, a good amount of stats, Cunning, decent stat for Cunning, and 15% chance of ambushing. Distinguish, 6 points of Instinct's not bad, 2 points of Authority is quite low, and that's going to be our biggest weakness in the early game, is that we are a veteran character with very low authority. And as a faction leader and as Yellow Turban who cannot hand out titles, most of your generals are going to be quite unhappy in the early game. So you're going to have to build those in out pretty fast to get the global faction-wide satisfaction boost so you can counteract that. And this is kind of our faction mechanic with our Master of the Land background. 50% post-battle loot income. You see the trend now? The more fighting you do, the more money you're going to have. So you're not going to be as dependent on your commandery build, but rather how many fights you can get into. And the amount of post-battle money by default is based on how strong the enemy army is, and you can increase that amount with these percentages here. Then you also get minus 20% recruitment cost discount for spear infantry. We're going to try to abuse this and you can combine this with 15% extra armor for all spear infantry. So this will shore up or strengthen, depending on which spear unit you use, their armor. And having high armor is very useful against archer unit, because one of the weakness to most spear units is that they don't have a shield, similar to the Guardian of the Land. But if you have high enough base armor, most archer units have very low armor piercing while maintaining very high base damage, so you can block most of those damage, which is another form of kind of having a ranged block chance for yourself. Of course, it's worthless against crossbow units, so they are very weak against those, but it's something that we can try to work with because we do have this. And that's pretty much it. So let's jump into this. We're showcasing this once again on Legendary 40 minutes, and China must be purified.
主公，洛阳焚毁都是董卓一手酿成的大祸。
如此，这汉室终结之开端，何其壮观！
这都是董贼干的好事，诸侯已联合奋起反抗。
汉室分崩离析、终结灭亡之时，正是我等英雄豪杰起事之时。
主公。 他们没有忘记过你。
今日虽然敌众我寡，但是我等之志坚不可移，是要匡扶天下，此战必胜。
眼下，我军唯有坚守，才能得以生存，而南部和西部都是易守难攻之地。
待我等准备停当，平定天下，定要无人可挡。
推翻旧朝时机已到，公都大人可高举黄金大旗，奔赴沙场。
Alrighty, we got our flyby, and we want to establish your power. Gongdu, as the Han begins to destroy itself, your opportunity has finally come. The Empire still has power, and we are few. So we must gather our strength before striking. To the west and south are lands we could use to consolidate. But be worried not to let the Empire overwhelm you. When you are ready, there will be none who can stop our righteous attack. The yellow banner of war rises. We can annex nearby Yellow Turban regions and be wary of Ma Teng and Zhang Lu, who surrounds us in the beginning. Our first mission is just defeat the enemy force. We get a silver pole mace for our faction leader and some experience for him. And through study reform, get a gold book, in this case Earth, because we represent that element of the 3 yellow turbans. Public water and food production in local commandery. They do not have to be on administrator, you just have to have the character sitting in the commandery, whether by assignments, administrator, or on the field. Additional satisfaction boosts, authority, and resolve. Not a bad item. And let's take a look. We have the copper mine, as I mentioned, and we can annex this quite easily, or you can fight them. The cost of fighting them would be you have to declare war against all Yellow Turban rebels, which is not a main issue. You know, you can definitely fight them. They're not going to be aggressive against you anyways. You start out with this fight against this army with no anti-cavalry in the army, so you can just run them over with your 2 generals who are both in this army. You can duel him, he's level 1. You have 2 level 3 generals with full active abilities learned. Now, the problem with these 2 trees, we'll look at Zhang Kai first. He has a bronze weapon as well. You have Adamant Resolve for melee evasion boost. You have Binding Fury for a splash damage for dueling mainly. And Nature's Ally for kiting for nearby units, allies. This is really good actually. It has the fire element logo even though it's really an earth element spell. This is a mistake, does not matter. And he starts out with fire arrows and some interesting retinues. Horseback huntsmen. These are very cheap cavalry range units for the Gongdu's faction. They're not strong cavalry units because they cannot charge well. 38 charge bonus. That is extremely low. Look at these units. Your cavalry has that same level of charge. So they are terrible in close range combat. Their sword that they use is the same quality as an archer militia, 8 and 2 with 20 attack rate. So they're essentially archers on horseback that are 1/4 the size of archers, but highly mobile due to the fact they have decent speed, and you can increase their speed with nature's ally, as well as things like effortless flow for another 10%, and you also have mobility on this tree for another 25%, and you can get intensity for some extra charge speed if you ever need to charge at a far away routing unit just to get out of a fight. So those are all things you can kind of boost with his eventual skill tree. Now he does have recovery, so this will be quite useful for him. You also will get all sorts of really nice Yellow Turban skills, including Night Battle and Guerrilla Deployment. So those are all positives for Zhang Kai. Gongdu has Yellow Turban skills, some unique ones. So Killing Ground, another 7.5k splash damage with some debuff for the enemy, including melee attack rate drop. But it's not that significant. The speed drop doesn't really matter if you're using this in a duel. Here, Desperate Cry is a range bonus for nearby units of 75 meters for only 15-second duration, where you boost all their damage, melee damage, by 50%, and probably most importantly is their charge bonus by 50%. So you're kind of using this right before you charge into the enemy, because it only lasts 15 seconds, so you better use this early, and you want to get a big boost on the melee charge bonus for cavalry units that are not horseback huntsmen, because they don't have much. 50% is not going to make a difference for them. And then you have One with the Land, another passive boost that gives 10% speed, very similar to One with Nature, but because they're different ones, they will stack. So technically, if you have, people just around you, this makes Gongdu faster, not his units. There's no range on it, but there's a lot of speed on these build, right? He also has mobility. He has a lot of range boost with focus and precision here. He also has another speed boost with effortless flow for both on the campaign map and for his retinues. The thing is, he does not have recovery. So Gongdu is actually not that broken because he cannot heal on the battlefield, but he's still a decent character. And his background we talked about with all these bonuses, and here you can check the Dominion of Gongdu. And this is going to hold us back because there's really no way we can battle Satisfaction early on. So we're going to have to be suffering this minus 25% character experience pretty much for the entire early game, just because there's nothing we can really do for them. Now, of course, if you luck into items such as Philosopher, Concubine, Legalist Fanatics, you can solve that problem. But in this case, we did not. We did get a bunch of good weapons. Once again, we're not going to use any of these items. Your starting items are all on your characters already. So there's not going to be any item in your inventory that you start with that it's not listed there. In this case, we start out with these two weapons and they're both equipped already. You can obviously trade for items with your two other fellow Yellow Turbans on turn 1. That's the only diplomacy play you can make before your first fight. And you're looking for things like this. So in this case, you definitely want to trade for this just so that you can combat the early Satisfaction hits. Things like Shaman for improved capture chance, just to capture the rare generals with good items to execute them for the items. That's also very useful. So those are things you might want to look for. In our case, we're not going to be doing any of these. You can adjust accordingly and use your starting item to complete those tasks. We're just going to be doing this fight on Delegate because, like I said, we're going to be taking a pretty much beginner approach to this so that even if you have really bad battle micro, you can pull off our strategy here. So we'll be delegating this because there is a very sensible route where you can fight this manually, get the duel on Gongdu for easy win, and then just run Zhang Kai and Gongdu at the rest of the units and kill them easily. If you capture him, just release for the money since he doesn't have any items. So it's about what give us the most advantage here. And the 200 would be the more advantageous route. And we got ourselves the item, and we made about 400 from that battle. That's something that's going to be important for us because we're going to make most of our money from the fighting. And they want us to take any territory, give us more money. In this case, we're just going to annex it. You can definitely attack them, declare war on the rest of the Yellow Turbans. Not a big problem. Get more experience, get more money that way. It's not a hard fight. It's a level 2 town. Just run your generals inside, kill off the units, and you'll be fine. But like I said, we're going to have a pretty foolproof way of doing this, and we'll just be annexing them. We get 1,500 if we construct or upgrade any buildings, and if we reach balance, we get more rewards here. So this is our first challenge, Ma Teng's army. He's going to wipe out this sad group and come attack us on turn 1. and we're gonna have to defend here. That's fine. We'll be building our forge building, which only takes 1 turn, and we'll just leave the army as it is. We're gonna need these men to help us beat that army, and you can also loop. But even if you choose to loop, you don't want to, delete every single unit. You might want to delete, like, say, these 3 and keep the cavalry, because if you don't have any other units, you will lose to morale hits, and most of the units have terrible morale. So in most cases, I recommend just keeping the units. No one's unbreakable here. And you can notice that our units here that are spear units get a nice bonus for armor. So we're looking at 35%, 60% on him. As I mentioned, you can get really high armor values from spear units to kind of counteract any sort of enemy range in terms of archer units. So that's something to look forward to. And if you've seen our earlier Yellow Turban guide for Huang Shao and He Yi, you know that my favorite one is Confiscate Belonging for the extra looting and post-battle loot income. I feel like that's probably the most useful one in the first category, followed by, say, like Campaign Movement if you want to focus on battling, which we definitely will be, or Character Experience if you want the nice bonuses from the skill tree. And in our case, one unit that we should really focus on later on is Militia of Virtue, because they're going to be unbreakable, high damage, high evasion spear unit. So when we recruit these, one of the weakness is only 20% armor, but for us, it's at least 15% over that because of faction-wide boost. And if you take a look at some of our skill trees, you can see that we can actually pick up another, there's one that gives 10%. Where is it? Here, another 10% armor. So we can boost it to around 45% armor, and we can have the 60% evasion and the 100 points of unbreakable morale, and we can spam those units and they delegate extremely well. And even if you have to fight them on the battlefield, they fight extremely well because they're unbreakable, and you can kind of overpower enemies with that in the mid game once you can afford them. They do cost around 145 per turn of upkeep, which is not a small amount. You're going to have to kind of build up to the point where you can afford an army of them. Before that, you're probably going to be using peasant spearmen, similar to how we use the peasants with He Yi because of the melee evasion for purple infantry. In our case, we get the discount as well as the armor boost for green spear infantry, which are, peasant spearmen have exactly that trait. All right, so that's enough said. We picked our reform. We got our building queued up. We want forge because a lot of industry here. They give percentage to industry, they give base industry, and most importantly, they give 10% replenishment. We don't get the awesome replenishment boost that He Yi does, so we're going to have to supplement it with this. Now the good thing is that's faction-wide, or not faction-wide, commandery-wide. So while we are inside all of Wudu, including once we do capture this silk, we'll get that 10%, eventually 20% from these buildings here. Alrighty, and let's continue here. And you see that Ma Teng's right on cue, attacking us. This is usually a difficult battle, but we can either loop them or just kite them and beat them pretty easily without really exploiting the AI very much. Although looping is still a great strategy, I fully endorse it, but in this case we'll showcase how to fight this normally. Alrighty, so we loaded up in here, and we see that they have lined up over here next to this gate. That's fine. We want to gather all these units that has not replenished back yet. We just want to put them on the opposite side for no real reason. We're just going to hold them there. We're not going to actually use them. We're just going to use our units, which are injured from the delegate. If you decide to fight the last battle manually, yours won't be injured, which is probably a good thing. You want your guerrilla deployed horseback huntsmen outside. They have guerrilla deployment on them regardless what your general has. And then for our front door, it's quite straightforward. We want our best unit in the front, even though he doesn't really counter range. They don't have a lot of range. One thing about Ma Teng's army is he will have a lot of Qiang cavalry, but not a lot of range units. So we can luck out there. And our generals will just sit right behind with all their different boosts. And make sure we turn off dueling for now. Even if we want to duel, we want to be the one who are issuing that. Now all three has flaming shot, and we're gonna kite. We can probably do this on 3 time. And we're just gonna harass them. If we get shot, just kite back a little. If they chase us with their cavalry, that's wonderful. And we just want to light the whole forest on fire too, which would do most of the damage for us. We can fire while we shoot, even though we have terrible melee. We and do that, and I'm gonna give them some melee evasion, give them some damage boost, and then I'm gonna run in here and do a damage as well. Come back to kiting here. Their range units are dead. And then we can flank from behind right here. I also can do a slash attack. It'd be better if I can charge out of this, because then I can flank hit them as well. Don't want to go too far, because remember Junkai has a morale boost on Nature's Ally as well, and they're good. Come right back. Charge right here. Charge right here. Charge right here. Use your splash damage ability. And they're still firing at the one cavalry unit, or well, he's not there, but he's got to go through all that fire. And we're just gonna flank on them. And let's see if we can get a duel. We'll pick that up for some experience. He's also unbreakable, so it's probably best we duel him. Alright, now we just want a nice even spread to chase them down. You can chase him down. You guys keep him busy. Dash the line. They bounce back. It's okay. I'm gonna give him 50% melee evasion. Oh, you need to come back and provide a morale boost. They'll be fine. Even though town cavalry are strong, we can just kite away. We don't want to be in a melee fight. Remember, their melee damage is the same as an archer unit. Really, really bad. Yeah, just let the archer, let the towers do their job, and just kite. You guys got the speed advantage. They only have 75 speed, so they cannot catch you. Unless you miss micro and get dragged into a melee fight, then they might catch you for a little bit. Yeah, you're gonna win this. Give yourself another slash damage. Don't kill him, because then he gets healed their friends. But he's ready routed. He's ready routed, and we win. And we didn't loot them. This is, oh well, he's still around, but it's over. Pretty fair fight. I think that's perfectly reasonable way to fight this without exploiting anything, except for our two very awesome towers. And we get a heroic victory. Alrighty. And we get to pick up a lot of money post-battle. And we capture Pangde. There is no reason to keep him alive if he has an item, because we cannot recruit them as Yellow Turbans, so even though historically he's a great guy, we execute him, which is exactly how he died historically. Get captured, was stubborn, got executed. We'll pick up more money from him, and Ma Teng's not going to bother us for a little bit. Alrighty, now we finish the upgrade, and we get some cash for that, and we can de-escalate our entire force. We're going to actually recall or delete every one of them. I have no interest in any of them. They cost a bit too much, and we want to do a passive buildup of our commandery. Now, we can actually improve this by a lot more than just simply build them because of Yellow Turban abilities. So we're going to recruit our other general that we start with. He is just a generic brewer, which doesn't give much unless he is in a faction-wide role, but he starts out with resolution, which gives -1 construction time in local county. And he has encourage, and this is a passive income faction-wide. Nothing else too fancy here. He has +5 satisfaction, but he's also never going to be happy with you because of legendary difficulty. Delete that, and now everything's 1 turn faster in local county. So not the entire commandery, just where he's standing. So in this case, we're going to upgrade this from a small town, or just a town, to a large town. It will only take us 2 turns now, a little bit quicker. And you can see both of them are unhappy. There's really nothing you can do. The only trick you could have done is make him the commanding general of the army before the end turn, because then the leader of the army can get a satisfaction boost from heroic victory, and that would actually make him into the orange tier. Not that's going to make a difference for this, because as long as you have 1 general who's low, then the whole faction gets this debuff. So you can't fix him. So it doesn't really matter if you fix him or not. Now, of course, you have some items you can give them to fix one. Then the other way to fix him would just have him lead in the fight prior to give him a nice boost from a heroic victory that will last, quite a few turns actually. But this is where we stand. We're going to play passive around Wudu. We're going to wait for Zhanglu's army to show up eventually and just build up this town first before we head out with 2 armies actually. So that's it. Let's continue. Alrighty. Hansui and Mateng split already. We're still at war with both of them. Doesn't really matter for us. You actually gain a lot of items during the first few turns at your little turbans. And we're just going to patiently wait for these things to finish and stack a lot of cash so that we can build our army in full when we do get that opportunity. Alrighty, we're in spring. We get ourselves Zuo Zhong, who is the burn officer. Very, very useful. Snatch him up. Every single general that comes into your pool, you auto-recruit as Yellow Turban. And now we can upgrade this again. We want this to be a small city. So we can build this to level 2, we get another slot. And the only issue with the new slot is it has to be a farm because we have no food supplies. And once we hit a small city, it's going to require us to have 2 food. But we're going to do just that. And that's pretty much it. Now this is extremely passive, I understand that. And there's not much activity going on in the early turns. You could have taken that army, perhaps recruit the Yellow Turban Spear Captain retinue, and bring that army to fight him as a follow-up fight, and then wipe him out. Lu Bu's army is going to come down. You can wipe him out. Dong Zhuo get recruited here, and you can go wipe him out. I have done that in a test run, only to kind of realize that for a lot of players, microing the battle against Lu Bu here, and then microing the battle against Dong Zhuo here, are not the easiest thing in the world. So we'll do something more, you know, kind of beginner friendly and just wait things out and let them come to us while we are in this city. We got our first reform, we got the book. Now this book definitely should go on Zhang Kai. The reason being he's always going to be in your army, the satisfaction hit's going to be nice, the authority is going to be nice, resolve's going to be nice, and the local bonuses of public order and food is going to be nice. And we're still waiting for any activity here. That's the only ancillary item we got. And we'll go with campaign movement range, which is kind of on brand for us because, you know, we can take full advantage of more fights, we'll make more money. That's kind of the trend. Now, just because that's on brand doesn't mean you should rush for guerrilla warfare building. It's not very good. Even if you upgrade it fully, 25% faction-wide post-battle loot, it's definitely excellent as like a 6th building choice or a 5th building choice. Early on, there's a lot better buildings for Yellow Turbans. Like, you definitely want to forge, you definitely want to inn. And then after that, in our case, we need a couple farms because we have no access to food and we just need farms to help us sustain food. So those are like 3 core buildings we can't even, you know, avoid. And then beyond that, in our case, having a lot of industry, you know, you're going to be better off getting things like the artisan and manufacturing for those industry and commerce boost. So by the time you have a spare space, you could go for this. A lot of big battles in the late game will bring you a lot of cash because you can stack this in every single commandery and it can become a pretty big number. Alrighty, but we're good now. We're waiting for Zhanglu's army to show up to fight us here. And we get more characters who we will auto-recruit. These are the same characters you get when playing as any of the Yellow Turban DLC characters. They're all pre-programmed to show up during certain turns, and we're going to recruit them all. And that's it. Alrighty. Still nothing showing, and we get some relationship improvement, which is good for satisfaction, because now you guys can become friends, and your friend with faction leader helps with satisfaction. 2 more characters here, pretty crucial, consider that we're really close to ranking up. And the characters, each skill gives 2 points of enlightenment. 2 characters gives us 8 points, because level 1 character starts with 2 skills. So we actually rank up from just recruiting characters. And we get more experience for Gongdu leveling him up. And we get character recruitments. We get another character on top of that. And we get new assignment slots, which means we get new missions for putting characters on assignment. And they want us to build a Scholar's Lodge. No rush on this, really. It's a lot of money, but a few levels into that building. And we don't need a Scholar's Lodge right now. We got some more items for free. You're going to get a lot of items. So, you know, plenty of things to equip. We get her for free here, who came with the item. That's interesting. That's how we got the item. She is the reward for leveling up. I don't know if she's randomized every time or not, but I think I've seen her a couple times on the test run, so maybe she's preset. And of all these characters that we got, he's an interesting one because he's a veteran character. We have 2 veterans, but the thing about him is he will provide us 5% research, and he has a really nice assignment that we can use, which I'll showcase right off the bat. And we also have another brewer here. He's the first one recruited after our brewing officer. 10% passive research rate, and they also have a very nice assignment that we can use. And the fact that he has vein means he's better off doing assignments than being on the field, because the upkeep discount, the upkeep extra cost, not discount, is something that's pretty hard for us to swallow early on. We actually get 2 assignments for this level up. You can see exactly how many of each increase we'll get at each tier, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But the 2 you want is a very awesome veteran assignment unique to Yellow Turban called Development Planning. It gives -1 construction time and -25% construction cost in the entire commandery. And of course, he would have the option to give -1 turn as well from supervised construction. This is the same as the Sentinel ability, and another -10% cost. And remember, we have a character here on the field who's giving us -1 turn as well just by standing here. So we're going to have -3 turn plus -35% cost starting next turn. And Gong here has ranked up. If you want to go extreme, you can get another -1 turn, but you don't really need this. And this doesn't really bring a lot to him. Gives himself 15 points of melee evasion, but there are better options such as getting 10% campaign movement range and 10% speed to own retinue, leading into the extra armor. That's a good option. If you want to just go for extra damage and extra replenishment for the army, that's also a good option, especially if you don't plan on having him lead. Like right now, you don't have to have that plan. If you think that Zhang Kai was going to lead for you with this, then you can definitely swap things up and go for the replenishment first. And as a matter of fact, I actually prefer this. I don't think we need that 10% movement right off the bat. The replenishment is going to be a huge factor. So we're going to grab this first. And then next turn, both assignments will be activated, and perfect timing for us to get the extra slot, and we'll be doing a lot of our buildings then. Now these characters have some local bonus too, if you want to recruit them onto the field. The 3 that didn't get assignments, the 3 healers that we have, they're awesome by the way. Healers have, recovery skill on every single one of their classes, so they're pretty much gods in the game. And you can summon them for extra public order boost if you want, but right now there's really no rush. So that's it for us, and let's continue here. Alrighty, gained a sword for sending someone to assignment. They want us to have 30 units total. Actually super easy to do. Once we get our 2 full armies, we'll get another weapon and more experience for our faction leader. So tons of missions. Dongzhuo's gonna die, so we don't have to face him if we just wait him out. More items from the missions. And now once we get our slot, you want to build your farmer quick, 1 level, cost very, very low, very, very fast. Therefore the rushing cost is based on the turn, also very, very low. And now food is not an issue instantly. Then we want to spend a turn upgrading the forge, and while we're doing that, we're going to tear this down. Not because it's a bad building, but because we want the in building to fix many of our satisfaction issues, which are starting to bounce back now, you see, but there's still a couple that is having just barely a little bit of problem. Most of these have recently recruited to kind of help them out, but they will also turn bad soon. So ideally, we want to build in buildings that are very high level in all our commanderies. So we're going to sacrifice this building first. We can't afford to upgrade it again for the next slot, even though it's super cheap right now. The whole reason being we can't really get 6 food from this building, unfortunately. So that's it. Let's continue. All right, we got ourselves another reform done. This one's the 10% movement. Farther increasing relationship. So I'm guessing we're now Oathhorns, perhaps? At least friends. And now you see we have the next tier up because we faction ranked up, but don't select these yet. 6 turns right now at 115%, it's not worth it because they're taking the base turn, which is 6, dividing by 1.15. It rounds down to 5 point something and it goes up to 6. If we get this to 120%, which is super close, like 1 extra character recruited that is, a scholar, you get 10%. Then at 120 or higher, divide 6 by 1.2, it becomes 5 turns. Divide 6 by 1.5, it becomes 4 turns. So you kind of want to wait. And there are these really optimum levels of research rates for each of these tiers. They're all part of our Yellow Turban reform guide if you're interested. So right now you still want to focus on the first column because you're not really missing out on much. For a 4 turn to go down to a 3 turn, you need to divide it by like 140%, or else it always rounds up. So we're kind of in the optimal zone to keep staying in this area for now. And the thing that we're interested in is probably character experience, just because the skills help us rank up with enlightenment points, as well as the skills are just powerful overall. And you might be tempted for this, but there's better solutions like building the inn building. Eventually get this, because Militia Virtue is the way to go for this faction. Even better than this one that you started out with. You know, insane armor is nice, but 30 morale is terrible. They're not going to be that effective in battle. These guys will fight to the last man for you with incredible damage, 42 and 2. Almost no armor piercing, I understand, but even let's say the enemy has, you know, 32% armor, which is very typical early on for medium infantry, you're going to do a ton of damage. You're doing 28 base plus the 2 armor piercing over that. You're still doing 30 damage per hit, 20 attack rate, not bad, 60% melee evasion, at least, you know, 35% armor, if not 45%. So you'll be an excellent unit in the game with this Militia Virtue in the mid game. But first, we'll get the 10% character because generals are definitely way stronger on romance mode. And we'll be starting with our inn as we have hit our max 20% industry and as well as 20% replenishment, which is really what we're interested in here. And we can even rush this if you want, depends on how, you know, patient you are, because ideally you actually want one of them to cancel this so that you can essentially pick up, what do you call it? The assignment that gives you more characters. There's the recruitment assignment that you can use. But I guess build up is nice because we're in no rush. I'm waiting for Zhang Lu's army. He should show up soon. All right, still not much happening. We want the satisfaction to go up. Food is good. Eventually you get rid of this once you get other sources of food, but right now you gotta keep this. And we just keep going. All right, so declare war, Fall Tyrant Dongzhuo is dead. That is excellent news for you, by the way. You probably want to wait for this to happen, because now, even if you wipe out the Wu's main army, Dongzhuo is not going to come onto the field. That's a lot less to deal with. We're going to build this up, and then for our assignments, I think at level 3, that's the max we can build without ranking it up. We pretty much got all the value we want out of this. Sure, we can upgrade this, but it's not urgent that we have to upgrade the copper mine. So I think we can cancel this now. There's a lot of benefits to, we can cancel both actually, to the other assignments that I was talking about. So for example, this attract talent not only can get us a new character, but also give all initial recruits +2 rank. So when we build up our army, that's going to be really helpful. So we're going to set them up for that. And that's it. All right, Dongzhuo is dead. No one really cares about us because, you know, we've been quiet. We didn't really expand, well, which is great, actually, in my opinion. Now we're not going to build any buildings. We're going to change up some of the assignments. You see what I mean here? You can attract a new talent to recruit. You can also get starting rank for all new recruit in terms of the army recruit. And then there's all these food and farming ones, income from commerce, which is not bad given that we have a level 3 inn building. Or we can go back to this if you want to do more buildings. There's also a public water one. But essentially, this is what we really want. Get him back on it because he has Vayne. He's never really going to be on the field in the early game. So he can do this. It will activate next turn, and that's when we will start building our army. And then on top of that, it's really up to you how you want to approach this. There's no wrong choice. We do have some peasantry income. But like I said, 75% is the higher number here because that's only 50%. So just pick who you don't like. We're definitely using him because of the burn buff. Elusive, creative, friendly, armor for his retinue, understanding, Stuart, composed. Yeah, maybe her. Because he also has replenishment for the army, so he's better off on the field. So I think she will be the one we'll use for assignment here. And then for everyone else, I think we'll just leave them, we'll summon them next turn. Because in case they show up this turn, I don't want them to get attacked outside. Only one army can be sitting in here. Alrighty, we got our third reform, and we right away picked up talent. This doesn't always happen. It could happen anytime within the 5 turns, and sometimes it doesn't even trigger at all. Just be patient, reset the assignment, and do it again. If you have it spawn, then you need to go reset the assignment right away. Cancel it, have him come back, and redo it, because you only can get 1 character out of each attempt. So once you see this, you scored big. In our case, we got really lucky because we got it right away. And you get a choice. Frugality gives you a veteran. Humility gets you a scholar. Compassion gets you a healer. In most cases, you want a scholar because scholar has the best starting passive trait, 10% research rate, usually what I'm talking about here. Healers are also very powerful, guarantee recovery. You do start out with quite a few veterans, which are nice, but I prefer this almost all the time. And you can see why. So we have a satisfaction boost on himself, minus 20% corruption. This is probably one of the worst starting ones because the other choices are insight for 10%. And then the other choices can be minus 1 construction time, already seen that, or increase commerce by 6%. Those are the 4 starting scholar trait represented by the Tian character or the heaven character on their skill. And all 4 of these are wonderful. This being probably the weakest one, and even the weakest one's pretty decent, and they can come with items, so wonderful here as we pick up another item. He's not going to come to the battlefield with us. We're still going to use the 3 that we picked out earlier. We're going to raise them into the battlefield, 5% replenishment, and he will also come out. And for each of them, we're going to delete their existing characters. And we're going to give ourselves an actual army for this upcoming fight. And our army is going to be pretty simple. We mentioned this. We want peasant spearmen. They have very good damage, 34 armor piercing on their spear. They typically have extremely poor armor. And in this case, they're made up by our faction unique bonus from Gong, 15% armor. And this is where you can get imaginative. If you can get all 3 of these characters in the faction leader role in the late game, when the 2 other of your allies fall, doesn't matter who you're playing, you combine their bonuses. He Yi will give you 15% melee evasion, Gong Du will give you 15% armor, and Huang Shao will give you invisibility. And then you can have the ultimate peasant army of high melee evasion, high armor, and invisible units rushing at the enemy. Pretty awesome playstyle for Yellow Turbans in the late game, using very, very basic units. But you're just going to be using them. They have a very good playstyle because they have the expandable trait, which means if they die, they cause no morale hit. Therefore, they actually are really good, similar to Unbreakable unit almost, because they don't actually force the rest of your army to lose anything when one of them falls down. Whereas in most other cases, if one unit goes down, it will drop the morale of your other units, causing a chain rout, really diminishing how strong your armies can be. But in this case, every single one will fight till they rout individually, and that's it, and that's still good. So we just are going to spam these guys, and they also don't matter what class you have. You can always recruit them because they're peasants, and because of our high replenishment rate from our not only forge but also the starting skill we picked for extra 5%, and also they have this in this army too. They're just not on the land. They will all replenish up very, very quickly. And for our skill here, we're not at 120 yet, so we're going to go get our militia virtue ready. They cost twice as much as these units in terms of upkeep. You can see that we have a negative income. Don't freak out. This is fine because we're about to go to war. And for us, every battle makes us a ton of money. So armies, as long as we're using them to fight, will make a ton of money, and we have plenty saved in the bank to overcome any potential issues. There's nothing else we need to build here, so we're totally fine, and everyone's starting out at rank 4. So pretty powerful. Let's continue here. Alrighty. The only thing that's slightly, annoying me for this test run is that Zhang Lu never came. They also have a civil war now, even better. We get so many items for weapons, for missions that, I feel like I can probably put weapons on them, and that's not going to be like a variance issue because you definitely at least have bronze items. But at this point, we can move. Like even without the mustering 10%, we're going to be full. They might not be in the same case. Ma Teng's going to rebuild his army, but nothing scary. Yeah, they're not going to be fully healed, but it's good enough. And satisfaction, definitely a big issue early on. And there's not much we can do about that. So we're going to have to just eat this penalty for the entire early game. And once you do get access to the second role and have 120%, because I'm pretty stubborn about efficiency, the one you want to go for is this one because it unlocks level 4 in. And that 1 point of satisfaction is worth it. The income's also good, and once you get more commanderies, it's not just 1 point, it's 4 points for each commandery, and that's what's going to fix your early game satisfaction issue in the most efficient manner possible. So go for that one when you open up the next tier, and then the other good ones are this one for replenishment, mustering turn, all the battlefield deployables, which are all pretty useful, and then you can just kind of pick what type of buildings you want. Unit-wise, I think this is still hands down your best unit in the mid-game, so you don't really need to care too much about it, but cavalry are nice because you do have a lot of speed boost, a lot of charge boost on your skill, so getting some decent shot cavalry is not a bad choice either, because 50% boost to his 218 is huge, right? You're getting 300 plus charge bonus, you're going to be erasing generals at that point. And then once you move on to the next tier, you want to get the level 5 in, and also pick out some of them. I mean, I'm not going to go over which ones are good. We have a guide for that. But anyways, we're good here. Let's continue. And we get to pick who we want to be friends with. We'll go with Scholarly. Just basically relationship boost with the faction leader. Not a big deal. More free item. Jungle was just super quiet on this run, which I guess is good. I mean, it makes the game a little easier for you. And we forgot to cancel it. Always cancel him after we get the character. Now, he actually bravely stepped up, which I'm actually kind of shocked. But we'll walk right to the edge. He's going to run. And looks like we actually lost most of our movement. Now, we can talk about that stance for a second, because the stance is actually pretty interesting. The liberating stance. You can see we have to use up 25% of our movement range to even put ourselves in this stance. Afterward, we'll lose 20% of our movement. We can still move in this stance, but you just start with 20% less. And you get 18 points of public order in the area. And your units will be tired. You reduce the food production in this area by 50%. Doesn't mean 2 of these will drop them to 0, because they could have positive increase percentages. It will sum out first and then be applied. But a couple of these, you could force them into 0 food. And you get a lot of military supplies because you're looting, basically, or liberating in this case. I do want to fight this together because they will actually reinforce each other, and we lost a lot of movement on him, so we're going to actually go bait. So we will put him here, we'll put him in ambush, put him right behind, and see who wants to bump into us. Yeah, satisfaction issues all around, nothing we can really do about it. Not building anything, so let's continue. And they bumped into us. It didn't get into an ambush, which is fine. We can definitely fight this. It'll be just massive amount of peasants charging into them with our 6 generals, which are all better than them. But in my case, I'm just going to save time and delegate this. Like, even the system know we'll win this. So I'm more interested in how much money we'll get post-battle here, because it's a huge army. And 742, but that's not the actual amount, that's the base amount. We'll multiply by all our multipliers. I think we'll get extra. We got his wife, we'll execute her for the item, and we'll pick up even more money here. Alrighty, so now we can just bring both of our army into him, and this is even easier. And remember, after we capture this, this is still part of Wudu, so we get 20% replenishment on top from our forge building. And we can execute Ma Teng here. Ma Chao takes over. He's probably going to end up summoning himself over there, and we're going to be marching to get ready to attack him over there. And we have a level up. So here we can pick up our next 10% research rate, then we can move on efficiently into the second category there. Lots of item from fighting these battles, including Legalist Fanatic. Now we can boost satisfaction faction-wide by 6 points, making things quite easy for us. We pick up more income with the level 3, which the AI actually ranked up for us, right? If we had to build this ourselves, we probably wouldn't have it at this tier, but because we waited patiently, we got it done. Now refresh him with another attract talent, because we would like more and more generals. And Zhang Lu is still being very quiet, so no big deal there. We'll go wipe out Ma Chao's faction here. Alrighty, perfect timing because we just broke 120, which means this will be 5 turns now. This will still be 4 turns, so now it's inefficient to go for these versus these because you're not saving any turns. Once you get over 135, so 140, these are better. Once you hit 150, these are better again, and so forth. And we'll be wiping them out. I can go assist. In this case, we don't even need to assist. Let's use the heroic victory example here. So for example, I know his satisfaction is 27, his is 24. So I'm going to have him lead and have him earn the heroic victory. And you can see that because he earned it, he gets 15 points of satisfaction. It will stay with him for a little bit before decaying away. So that's a good way to manage satisfaction, depending on who you want to lead. Now, obviously, I still prefer the leader. And now we can just turn around. Wipe out Zhang Lu, he has 1 faction. And Dong Zhuo is going to be passive because he's running out of generals because Dong Zhuo died in the Civil War. So because we waited out the initial phase, we don't have to worry about Lu Bu's army coming down from here and Dong Zhuo's army coming from here to after you. Han Sui typically is more passive. We will like his land. So now it's kind of a decision. You can easily do this where you spend your cash. We're building up a large amount of cash because we are basically continuously fighting. That's how we make money as Gongdu. To summon the new army back here and just have them defend the city for you. Because Zhang Lu is not going to throw a huge army at you. He's a poor faction with only 1 commandery. This way you can turn both of your armies north, wipe out Han Sui first, and then swing around, steal Dong Zhuo's land, which will give you some food from Anding. And then you basically sweep through the northwest and continue from there, go down south, claim the Shuba region, and then take on the rest of the world with your unbreakable militia of virtue using this spearman tactic. And it's not going to be a very hard run. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I think Gongdu, Huang Shao, and He Yi are all quite interesting and powerful factions to play if you have the Yellow Turban DLC. And definitely offers a different take on the game with their unique reform tree and buildings. They do lack quite a bit in terms of diplomacy, which takes away a large part from their gameplay. No faction council, no rerolls. Like with each patch update that give the Han something extra, the Yellow Turbans feels a little bit worse with each one. You have to deal with being schemed in this game, but you can never scheme other people. Also, faction council events against you will pile up quite excessively. You often see your land lose all reserves. Those are all minor things that could bring a little bit of challenge to your campaign when playing as the Yellow Turban, regardless of which one you play. But those are all things you can pretty much overcome just from how strong the Yellow Turbans are designed with their character focus, faction-wide skills on their skill tree, and all the bonuses you get once you get all 3 of Yellow Turbans all joining together. Because, the bonuses to armor, melee evasion, and stock, just really, really powerful. Of course, if you had to pick one of the 3 to play, the most powerful version would be He Yi, because these things don't come with the character, right? This is a faction bonus. So He Yi's passive 10% replenishment is the best bonus of the 3. And that way you can probably play him, gather all 3 generals, and then, conquer the rest pretty easily. That's why I think he's the easiest. Huang Shao is probably the second easiest because of stock. Gongdu is probably the hardest here, but with this strategy, it really can't go wrong in the early game because you're just waiting out the most difficult portion. No need to kind of bust your head in there when Ma Teng, Lu Bu, and Dong Zhuo are all very strong. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this guide, and see you guys next time. Bye!